the Skinwalkers of Wisconsin. It was a weekend. I was out hunting in the northern forests of Wisconsin. I was walking through the woods. It was near dark when I came across a clearing. It couldn't have been more than 50 feet in diameter. Then I saw it, the largest buck I had ever seen. I then laid down on my stomach and pointed my rifle at its heart. The buck must have heard me as it looked in my direction, but it didn't see me, so it went back to grazing in the field. As I pulled the trigger of my rifle, a large branch snapped behind and I thought I saw a wolf running off beside me, causing me to flinch and miss my shot, hitting the buck in the side of the torso as the buck let out a scream. I know I had hit something important as its side was gushing blood. It still ran. But I knew it would die at some point soon from its wound. I just had to follow the blood as it ran. I followed the blood trail for a few minutes before coming across a much larger clearing, at least 300 feet in diameter, and I saw movement at the other end of the clearing. Thinking it was the buck, I got back onto my stomach and chest and aimed my scope at the movement to see what it was, seeing a wolf eating the buck. I was disappointed the wolf had killed the buck before I could, but I just watched it, in awe by the cruelty yet beauty of nature. But then I saw something. Was that a hand where the wolf's paw should be? No, it couldn't be. It must just be a scratch from the wolf. But, did it have human teeth? I shifted a bit in my spot to try and see better, snapping a twig. There's no way the wolf could have heard me, but its head then snapped up to me on the small raised plateau I was on. It looked like it had human eyes, and it looked like it smiled at me. And it then stood up on its hind legs, still looking at me, deer's throat gripped in its long-fingered hand. This scared me so much I dropped my rifle, and in the second it took me to look down and grab my rifle again, the wolf was already halfway across the clearing. There was no way it could have gotten there that fast. As I looked back up at it, it stopped running, still looking at me. "What the fuck?" I whispered under my breath, terrified. I stayed where I was and stood up with my rifle aimed at it, still looking at the wolf. There was no way it could be a wolf, but the one thing I've learned from my 16 years of hunting and camping: never turn your back on and run from a predator that was hunting you. The wolf then opened its mouth like it was yawning, but it then let out a scream that sounded part human scream, part howl, and part animalistic screech as it then looked like the wolf frowned at me like it was disappointed in me standing my ground, before walking back to the deer and crouching down before continuing to eat it, as I then turned and ran for at least an hour back to my car, that horrifying scream playing in my head on repeat before I practically dived into my car. It was the happiest I'd ever been to see that old piece of shit in my entire life. As I then drove home, I didn't turn the radio on, I just drove in silence. When I got home I just cried in my car from fear of what had happened and joy from finally being safe for at least 5 minutes before finally getting out of the car and running into my house, locking every door and window and pulling every curtain shut. If you ever go hunting in the woods of northern Wisconsin, do not stay if you come across a wolf eating. Those things don't like it when you stare.